All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to yet another proposition. And this is our first from the Sushant School of Design. So Harminder Singh has graciously agreed to do this on very short notice. Our speaker, who was scheduled for today, had an emergency in the family and therefore was unable to actually do the proposition. So thank you for that, Harminder, first off. Um, so a little bit about Harminder. He's graduated in craft product design from the Indian Institute of Crafts and Design, Jaipur. And he has a master's degree, an MSc in architecture and settlement conservation from CEPT University. He's an empaneled designer in the North Region Office of Development, Commissioner Handicrafts, that's with the Government of India. And he has extended his skills through several courses on material joints from the National Institute of Design and in consumer behavior and marketing from the Indian Institute of Rural Management. And he's been with Sushant School of Design as associate professor and is also pursuing a PhD in the on issues of authenticity in Rajasthani crafts. So thank you so much, Harminder, and I hand it over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is Professor Basavara here?
He's
Not
having issues with connecting. Could you send him a link, Harminder, if you have his email ID? I don't.
Okay, ma'am. I'll send him on the WhatsApp.
Okay.
So, good morning, everyone. This is research which I have been doing from many years, and I have collected a lot of visuals and work copies from many sources, from the bloggers, websites of museums, and personally, I visited some museums in Qatar and Jaipur and some other places. And it's a very interesting area for me, and I've been doing this is research from like almost like 5 6 years. And when I went to look the application of this technique across all the creative expressions, one can find a lot of work which is being done in all sections of creativity. And so the topic is calligraphy in Islam, but I'm not going to talk about the values of Islam because this is not the area where I will be focusing. I'm just talking about the values in terms of cultural beliefs and mythological beliefs associated with the Islamic cultures. So, and this is a very long tradition in the Islamic culture. And if you look this piece of work carefully, you can see several verses here, and you can see the frame of the grid is based on pentagon, and it carries lots of uh, verses from Quran and messages of Prophet Muhammad. And in the center of this, you can see the name of Prophet Muhammad. So this is basically introduction, and in this presentation, I'm going to talk about a lot of work which is available in various countries, and the Islamic culture is spread over from Ottoman Empire to Indo-Gangetic plains and Eastern, Southeast Asia and Eastern Asia also. You can find in the Arabian Peninsula. You can find in in Gulf of uh, Persian Gulf. You can find in across India these kind of work of peace. And at the end, I'm going to show you the some of the piece of the practicing calligraphists who are working in some parts of India. I will share the contact number of those calligraphists also. And if one has an interest, they can get in touch with them, and they can start, doing their work. They can ask them to do work for you, and you can incorporate these techniques in your work. So So before Prophet Muhammad, the uh, Kaaba used to look like this. There was around 360 statues around Kaaba, and before the Islam came, the earlier Abrahamic religion, people who were following the Abrahamic religion, they were worshipping the idols around the Kaaba, and this was before Prophet Muhammad. And this is the timeline. Prophet Muhammad was born in 570, and then he marched towards Makkah in 630, and Quran was collected in 633, and Quran was standardized in 635. And what are the values of Quran in terms of work? When you create something, because he destroyed these statues, this is part of the core values of the Islamic culture, because they cannot create something which is created by a god. So they cannot create ideals, they cannot create deities in their house or in their worship places. So the only option they had to express their value was the grid of tessellation, which is based on geometry. So this is one of the example of one of the dome which is situated in Cairo, Egypt. Here you can see this area. Here this is a bend of calligraphy, and on this area you can see the tessellation of geometry pattern, which is incorporated woven with floral pattern. So this is the general practice of expressing their values in most of the work of art, in architectures, in products, in textile, and many other things. And also, these are some of the other ways of doing this. This is another example where they have incorporated the tessellation with the Arabic calligraphy and floral pattern. This is the exterior part. And this is the interior part of our structure, where you can see this bend of calligraphy, which is gilded with the gold foil. And you can see here these gold leaf work, and you can see the mosaic of colorful stones and painting. So these kind of things they were incorporating to express their beliefs while making things. So now uh, this is the basically image of one calligrapher practicing in Saudi Arabia. The calligrapher in Arabic known as a kataf, and the right side image is basically a sample image where tulip script is broken down into a grid. So they, through these small square dots, they measure the vertical stroke and the horizontal stroke of the letter. So this is the general practice across all Islamic calligraphy scripts. And the Haji manuscript was the one of the first initially manuscript which was introduced, and in probably in that manuscript the Quran was collected, and later on, lot of other scripts came in existence, and I will talk about those scripts also in this presentation. And so what happened once the Islam was established in Arabian Peninsula? So through Silk Route, they went towards Ottoman Empire, they went towards Persia, Indo-Gangetic Plains, and Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Afghanistan. All these parts were connected to the Silk Route. And the way they expanded their trade route, they were also expanding their territory also. They were going to new areas, and they were making new kingdoms which are based on the Islamic values. So once the paper was introduced by Chinese monks by Tashkent, was introduced in Arabian areas like in Saudi Arabia and all these states, and suddenly the expression of calligraphy changed because of the paper which is made out of the wooden pulp. Earlier they were making paper. That paper was not made out of wooden pulp. It was made out of silk fibers and cotton fibers. So when you look at this masterpiece, this is the most famous masterpiece. It is known as a Tugra, the signature seal of the Ottoman king, magnificent Sultan, and this is how you interpret this. Generally, when we read Quran or Arabic language or Persian language and Urdu, we read from right to left, and sometimes we read from. This is the general practice in their literature and manuscript. When it comes to calligraphy, so you can see in this colorful graphic, this is how you interpret in calligraphy. It can start from bottom, it can start from left also, it can start from right also, and they can start from top to bottom also. So there are many ways of interpreting these compositions, and this is another example of another manuscript which is incorporated with some floral pattern and gold foil gilding work. And here in this composition also you can read from many ways. So this is basically name of Allah, and this figure is not exactly resembling something as any particular profile of any thing, but it looks like a water drop. Now let's talk about the kiswa. Kiswa is the basically fabric which is covered, used for covering the Makkah. And if you carefully look at the kiswa, it is in minute detail constructed and woven and then embroidered with the values of these calligraphy techniques. So this is the factory of Kiswa, where these trained craftsmen are doing embroidery of gold and silver wire on silk fabric. So they use one of the finest silk fabric, and they use one of the fine method of making the wire of gold and silver to basically create the impression of calligraphy on Kiswa. So when you look at the door of Kaaba, which is also known as a Jannati Darwaza here, this is the largest image, and I have just cropped and zoomed in this. You can see several Quranic verses here. You can find messages. You can find the name of Allah. And if you carefully look at the door also of this gold is made out of gold. Here also you can find these calligraphy messages. Here also you can find, and even on the door lock also you can find the calligraphy. Now this is the old image of a door of Makkah. You can find a lot of floral patterns, calligraphy here, and this is the new door of Makkah. Now, this is some of the old manuscripts, which is done with the combination of geometry and calligraphy and floral pattern. All these things are incorporated in this manuscript. Another example, and this is mainly done with hand, brush and pen strokes. And sometimes these compositions can become narrative also. And abstractly they can depict some profile of living creature. For instance, this looks like bird, this looks like peacock, this looks like lion, and this looks like a man who's praying, and this looks like a face of a lion. So there are many other expressions in calligraphy. This particular work is basically depicting the journey of Karwa. People, when they were migrating from desert to one end to other end, so they have weapons, they have some supply, food supply, and they have some food for the animal also. And this particular work piece is depicting the trance trance culture, because in some of the areas in Ottoman Empire, people still believe in Sufism. So when they go to shrine, Sufi shrine, they do music and they play music and they go into trance while dancing. So this particular composition is depicting trance. Now, when it comes to products, objects of everyday use, you can find several styles of calligraphy here. You can find several material which is incorporated. This particular box is made out of wood and then it is inlaid with the silver wire. This particular piece is made out of bronze and inlaid with the silver, and this piece is made out of copper. This piece is made of bronze, and this piece is again combination of wood and brass wire inlay, and this piece is made out of brass. Another example, which is very fine, detailed, intricate work of calligraphy with the combination of floral patterns. You can find in all Islamic culture these things. And now look at the armors. This is basically armor which was used to basically show us the power in during the difficult times or wartime. So they were storing, this is part of a flag. It's a finial of a flag. And you can see another example of armor. Here you can see the name of Allah, and then you can see the several other messages on the armor. Now look at, these are the other example of calligraphy. These are the helmet and these are shoulder cover. Here it is done with the gold and here it is done with the silver on iron. Again, this is silver with iron. Some of the other example of this is gold on iron, this is gold on iron, silver on iron. Some more examples. Now, when it comes to architecture, whenever they were going to new areas and they were, acquiring that area, so they were building victory towers across the world. So this image is from Qutb Minar. You can see the fine work of calligraphy here, which is incorporated with floral pattern, and this carries a geometry, tessellation behind this calligraphy. This example is from one of the mosques from Cairo. Here, if you see, this entire band is made out of calligraphy. Here, this is done with the painting. Again, the jali work. This is again the combination of geometry and calligraphy. And this is a ceiling piece of another mosque. And look at this area. This particular area has a calligraphy with floral pattern. This is another example. This is also one of the mosques in Egypt, and this is the ceiling on the bend of around this square. You can find the calligraphy. It's done with a gold gilding. Now, these are some of the images I have got from one of the blogger, Meera Gupta. She is a very enthusiastic and collector of images and work of art. So I have taken from her presentation. So this right side black curtain is basically depicting the Qibla wall, and this is a silver coin, and this is a gold coin from India, Hyderabad. And this is the chola, basically a shirt of king, which is done with a painting and block printing and again painting. Okay, so it has a lot of application in the Islamic culture. Now, interesting finding, if you go to Dera Baba Nanak, which is in Gurdaspur, you can find the Chola Baba Nanak here, which has the calligraphy on Naqsh, verses of Quran. And this painting is in Chandigarh Museum. You can, if you have a time, you can go and have a look to this. So the Chola Baba Nanak is also done with the Naqsh calligraphy, and it has the verses of Quran. Now, these are the main 5 techniques of calligraphy which is used across the world: Naqsh, Tuluth, Muhakkak, Nashtalik, and Raqqa. So I will talk about these techniques. So basically they have written Bismillah Rahman Rahim in Naqsh, again the Bismillah Rahman Rahim, Bismillah Rahman Rahim, Bismillah Rahman Rahim, and Bismillah Rahman Rahim. all these 5 basic styles of calligraphy has different applications. Some of these are used for architecture, some of these are used for day-to-day writing, some of these are used for the royal court orders, and some of these are used for just casual work, which you do generally day-to-day. So this is the example of a Naqsh calligraphy. This is a Fateh Surah Fatiha in Naqsh calligraphy, done with floral pattern and with very minute detailing of miniature painting. And this is the example of Tulut. And this image is, I have got this image from Mr. Jakir Jaffa. He is based in Tonk, and he has explained me this is the name of Prophet Muhammad in calligraphy. And with these units, they measure the length of vertical and horizontal stroke. So this is one of the example of Tulut calligraphy. Now Muhakkak, this is another example, another style of calligraphy. This is again verses of Quran here, and this is Nastaliq. So within the Nastaliq also, if you go to Arabian Peninsula, you will have a different words, and if you come to Persian Gulf, you will find different, and if you come to Indo-Gangetic Plain, you will find something else. So all these calligraphy styles have sub-styles depending on the region. And this is the Raqqa. This Raqqa is basically a day-to-day writing of script. So whenever they write generally any signages, even if you go to Saudi Arabia, you will find the most of the signages on the road and streets are done on Raqqa. And now this is very interesting, Kufi. This gentleman is based in Delhi, and he is a calligraphist, and then he carves on the wood, and this is the end product. Same Kufi calligraphy is done on the gold also, and on architecture also, and on many scripts. So around 32 styles of Kufi is available. It's a large area. Within this Kufi script, you can find 32 scripts, styles of Kufi. Now, let's look at this. These paintings. These paintings are having a calligraphy plus some mythical creatures and having a war scene. Now, when you look at the first 2 slides, Prophet Muhammad basically destroyed the statues around the Kaaba, and after that they were not making any creatures and animal or anything. But here, when they came in this era, they were actually depicting the royal courts, they were depicting the war scenes, and they were depicting the mythical stories related to the demons and the negative and positive part of the life. So this is another change in the calligraphy. Now, when it comes to Indo-Gangetic Plain, you can see the Mughal Darbar, which has no calligraphy, but all the Darbar employers are there. Here, another example of Mughal Darbar, you can see calligraphy here. Okay. So he's the gentleman who has helped me out to do this research, and this is the example of Diwani script. So this script is basically used in the royal court. The unique characteristic of the script is basically these words are interwoven each other. So whenever any royal court or government is issuing an order, so they wanted to ensure that nobody should temper the ends of the word. If you have something here and if you add something here, you can change the meaning of the message. So this script was developed in terms of so that nobody can temper what is written on that, because during those days there was only handwritten documents available for the private body, for the governments, for the authorities, for the civil servants. So you can note down the number of this gentleman, you can get in touch with him if you have interest. You can do whatever you want to do further. This is another example. Now this style is basically from India. Probably this style was introduced during the Mughal era. When you go to Arabic culture, Arabic Peninsula, you will not find these scripts. These scripts are also used in Persia also. When Persian rulers came to India, they introduced these scripts, and some of the time the letters, the alphabets are Arabic and Urdu, but the masses in Arabic. So it is linked with each other. All these three languages are linked with each other: Arabic, Persian, and Urdu. This is another example of Mr. Zafar. This gentleman, this book belongs to him, and this is the Khate Chakista. This is another administrative script. This is again used for the royal court orders, court judgment, and orders from the administrators across the Islamic kingdoms and sultanates. And this is another example of Khate Nashtalik. And Khate Diwani. This is basically, this is Khate Diwani, and these are the letters of Khate Diwani. And this calligraphy is done on Khate Tulut. This you can find in Delhi. I will share the number of this calligraphist. You can get in touch with him and you can explore new areas. And this is basically explaining the the message of Quran. Again, this is done on wood, and again they are explaining true message of Quran. And this is Kufi in geometrical shape, and this is name of Allah on gold foil, floral pattern, geometrical patterns, and then again verses of Quran. This is Kufi. Now, this work of wooden object is basically done on Diwani. He is the gentleman, and he has passed on this technique to this gentleman, and he's got the national award also on this work of piece. And now finding is that, is there any prevention value in the Islamic culture of calligraphy when it comes to Indo-Gangetic Plain or Persian Gulf? Are these universal values of Islam of not drawing figurative things, or not drawing the creatures of other planets or mythical creatures? The question comes, why they are doing this, and is there any significant value related to in the regional area? So, or the second point is, then, is there any scope of a new style? So I have found out that there are new fonts are emerging with the help of computer. Some of the calligraphists are basically manipulating their composition with the computer technique. And so currently, is there any influence of technology also? This is another question. And these are the references.
Thank you, Harminder,
Yeah.
for that presentation. And yeah, there are no questions yet. Please feel free to type in your questions or ask them in person. It's an open house now.
So while people think of their questions, Radha, may I take a few minutes to?
Yes, please. Yeah.
We noticed that, I was saying earlier that, Harminder is from CEPT, and Professor Vasavra is here, and I think we may be misrepresenting his degree. It's MSc in Conservation Studies, not architecture, because, architecture is under the purview of COA, so we might, get into. So I stand corrected on that. We will correct that. And it's an interesting presentation. And also, the craftsman you mentioned, Harminder, is here as well. So, has joined us. It's not clear what, there are lots of questions. Of course, everybody will ask, what does they stand for, and what there are lots of issues that you've raised, and of course, like any culture, like any religion, it's not a monolith. So there are diversities in it, and of course, India has been a great culture where which has adopted and infused other cultures with a new identity like Sufism. That the Darvish and the Khan. So there's lots to learn, of course, and thank you for a very interesting. I would like to take this opportunity to ask Professor Vasavra if he'd like to make some comments and.
Thank you very much for inviting me for this.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, and I also thank Harminder to appear after many years and invite me on this. I'm very glad to see you here. And I think you have a topic which is quite difficult for me. I'm not an expert in this, although I have studied calligraphy closely, because in Ahmedabad, for example, calligraphy is rarely used in Islamic buildings because the Sultanate architecture was very different. But I have tried to somehow decipher some of it with the help of one of the scholars called Professor Zaid Desai, who is no more. And he used to sort of discuss these issues with me because I was not an expert in calligraphy of Islam. Although Urdu is supposed to be a language which has developed from Ahmedabad in Sultanate period and later. So the topic you have selected is interesting. But to my mind, it is very difficult, because when I encountered the calligraphy in Bidar monuments, while I was documenting Bidar, it was something, which was extremely difficult for me, because Bidar monuments are extremely full of calligraphy. And there are umpteen, amount of, phrases from the philosophy of Islam written on the buildings. There was also a great madrasa. So I have huge documentation of calligraphy. And I also use a huge dictionary which was presented to me by one of my students, because he thought it would be a good gift for me. And although, following this for years, I really find today that it's a very difficult subject. And unless you go whole hog in learning, the language, it would be very difficult to follow any kind of a PhD thesis on calligraphy. What you have, Harvinder, is a very good documentation. And I would be very interested in looking at it, how you find your PhD level research in this. So this is something, which I will always look with interest. So I could only tell you this much right now, because I think I have to really, it's very difficult to see the content on a screen for a few moments. But if I could see this in detail, maybe I can give you more comments on this. But right now, I feel that if you have 3-4 years to do your work, you will have to somehow get into the language and not rely on sources for translations. Because any kind of script, when you learn or when you want to sort of understand, following the language is of paramount importance. I must also say that we had a friend in NID who started learning Hindi from 60s. Although he knew Hindi, but he started learning Hindi because NID had a project to work on scripts in Devanagari. So he came up, he did number of years just to, to study the language before he could even really begin to do any research on the Devanagari script. So you have a very difficult subject on hand, and I'm sure if you could do it properly, it can be a contribution. But right now, I feel what you have done is some kind of a, partial documentation. So this is what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Vasavra. I'm going to just read out some of the comments that have come in. And Mark is saying that this is very interesting and it's a script for poets. Ekta Bhardwaj is asking, what is Makkah? I think you meant Mecca, I guess. I don't know whether, is it Makkah or she's written Makkah. Shoaib is asking.
I think she's referring to the script.
Okay.
There are several types of scripts in Islam, and depending on the script, I think the manner of writing differs, or the design of the letter differs. I don't know. Maybe
would you like to add?
She can clarify something, But this is what I get out of it.
See, Makkah is basically the holiest place for the Islamic people who follow the Islam. And then there is a language called Muhakkuk script, which is one of the script of calligraphy, which is used in Arabian Peninsula. You can find that. So that is the answer.
Okay, so it's Makkah and Mahakka. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Muhakkuk. Yeah.
Mahakkum. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Ekta, I hope that has clarified your question. Shoaib is asking whether calligraphy in Islam follows the rules of sacred geometry. And of course, don't know what is.
Yes, of course, it follows the rules of geometry because the earlier paper was available in limited sizes and limited thickness. It was not industry produced. So the calligraphers who were writing down their message on the calligraphy, they were calculating the proportions with the reference of the paper size and the message, the amount of text which they want to write. They were dividing based on geometrical principles. Otherwise, if you have a smaller size of paper and you use the larger size of font, you will not be able to write down the entire message on one piece of paper. So definitely it has a sacred geometry, which is sometime learned through the practice, because generally these calligraphers are trained as a generation to generation. So initially they start measuring the strokes, vertical strokes and horizontal strokes based on the geometrical proportions. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Wow, lots of questions. God, I'll have to run through these. Professor Menon, the SSD Dean, has asked, what was the reach of such calligraphic text to the common man?
In terms of message of Quran, everyone has as a holy book in their home. Everyone has one piece of Quran. People who follows Islam, everyone has it. So in terms of reaching out to common man, it is there. And even if you go to some of the people who could afford the detailed architecture with the manuscript. They were commissioning calligraphers to convert those verses in their structures also, and sometime on textiles, sometime on artifacts. So I have shown some of the objects of uh, day-to-day need also. So it is in the reach of common man.
Okay. Tapasya is asking, is there a mathematical process for distinguishing between various styles of calligraphy?
Yes, there is, but the exact proportion on what principle they do, that I still have to learn, because that is another area of research. So I have no understanding till now, but I know that there is a different methods of calculating this.
Work in progress, of course, which is what proposition is about. So yeah, that's great. Parshati is asking, I mean, she's thanking you first of all for sharing your wonderful collection with us. And she writes, I'm curious about what is being done to conserve calligraphy as a knowledge system. Who is teaching, learning, monitoring, and carrying it forward?
See, if you look at the context of India, there are some of the fine calligraphists who are practicing from generations, and they do miniature painting also, and they do objects also, and they are making masterpieces. These masterpieces are going to museums and going to private collectors, and so this is one area where they are working, and they give it to some of the buyers in Gulf also, people who have interest in these kind of work of Islamic expressions. So there's a lot of work happening here, but there are handful people in India now as compared to earlier time, because earlier everything was done with the calligraphers only. I have seen my great grandfather's property paper, which is written in Urdu with the calligraphy, and probably that is around 150 years old during the emperor time. So it was used in all areas earlier, because there was no other way, because people were not trained to write in day-to-day life. The common man was not able to write their name also during those days, because we had a very less literacy rate. And so these people were very important during the emperor time. Yeah.
I guess the question may have been also referring to the sort of the present day. Who are these few people? I mean, where are they? Is there a training school? Is there a, there used to be guilds and all before, but what is that sort of method of disseminating? Is it master craftsman and apprentice? I guess maybe the question is also trying to go there somehow, if you are aware. Otherwise, yeah.
Yes, some of the families are practicing, and they're passing on to next generation also. And there are people who doing this. The guy which I have shown you with the last four slides, a wooden piece, he has learned from his father. Yeah, so it is going on.
Okay, thank you. Um, Ekta again is asking, what makes you do research on calligraphy and why not some other language? I guess I can twist that around a little bit to say, what drew you to this topic?
Uh, Actually, I come from a historical city. And, from my childhood, I've been looking of all these minute, detailed work in my family, in my relatives, and there were a lot of people used to come to my grandfather to repair their masterpieces, and so it's basically I've inherited from my forefathers.
I mean, you also have a very interesting academic journey because you've studied in IICD. Can you tell us a bit more about that and what drew you from the city to which is so full of craft traditions to learn about crafts because it's generational for you and then to go to South and then
Actually, ma'am, when I was in school, my father came to know that there is an institute in Jaipur which is coming up. So actually, he guided me to actually get admission in this field of design rather than a craftsman. So it's because of my father, and also initially the people who were involved in the admission process of IICD, because I am from the first batch of IICD. So Professor Shashi is also part of that team, the current dean of SST. So these people were very sensitive and inclined towards incorporating the traditional practitioners into this design contemporary education. So it was the help from the institution only itself.
rather you're on mute.
Sorry, apologies. Piyush is actually saying that the use of Arabic calligraphy in Indian architecture and painting is there's some research which has been done on it, and he'll share a reference with you. Jayanti is writes, she says, thank you, and so interesting. And she's says, you have shown that calligraphy has an emotional content beyond the mathematical. As Professor Vasavra has said, it may need a spiritual mindset that is beyond the intellectual to decode. What would you agree with that? And what do you think?
Initially, ma'am, this calligraphy in Islamic world started as a word of God. They wanted to write down the message of God in a very high standard. So slowly, the competition started within the writers, how they can improve the expression of writing through improving the fonts, proportions, and paper. So certainly it is based on the mythological part of the Islamic culture where they believe on certain things, and that's how they were, creating value on the manuscripts through calligraphy.
Thank you. And I guess that a little bit.
I think rather than coming in because I think that's a very interesting question and it's a very it's a question that in a way messes up the neatness of art historical studies that you have to be objective in everything you do and the evidence based format that we have for PhDs and how do you get how do you do justice to material that requires at least empathy towards a sense of devotion to religion to beliefs and how do you kind of factor that in because how do you evidence soul for example so this is a really pertinent question when you work on areas such as philosophy or even religious architecture sacred in the sacred realm really and even the secular realm I mean these are artificial boundaries anyway any realm will have these spiritual dimensions. So how do you get those in legitimately without sounding sort of not art historian? That's a very
Yes, indeed. Was it just me? But I couldn't. There was some break in Vibhuti's connection. I couldn't quite finish, but we've got the gist of what you said. Thanks. Yeah, Shubhra's asking how calligraphy. I'm just going to try and put some of these questions together. how's calligraphy used today? Can a person, an expert in calligraphy in one language, also practice it in another language? And is there any connection between Japanese and Chinese cultures? Maybe. Okay, these are some of the questions which you may answer together or separately.
Uh, See, the one master calligrapher is basically know how to proportionately divide the piece of paper on which he wants to write down the message. If he don't know the proportion of letter and the paper size, and if he writes down arbitrary, he will not be able to write down the entire message. And the trained calligrapher is also trained in all three languages, Arabic, Persian, and Urdu. Because Urdu and Persian has a similar font, their letters are same, but language is different. And both these are derived from the Arabic culture. So, all these things are linked together. And some of the calligraphers are very good in writing, but they cannot interpret. They can make the copies of existing work of masters, but they themselves cannot explain what is the value of that piece of work. They are just working as a calligraphist. They cannot explain. And some of the calligraphers who knows the meaning of the poems also, verses of also, and why that particular shape is developed through that particular stroke. So they know everything. And I think it is depending on the experience of that calligrapher and the kind of training he has gone through. It is depending on individual basis. Yeah. So
Okay. Right. And Sobia is asking, what is the future of calligraphy as a craft in architecture? And if you know, and does it translate the cultural aspirations of the people in any way?
See, historically, when we look at the technique of calligraphy, it was patronized by the authority of the local authority. So whenever they were building institutional buildings or spiritual activities they were doing, they were commissioning these calligraphists from the royal court. Unfortunately, because we don't have kingdoms now, people don't have that much of money to patronage these calligraphists to do customized work. So maybe if somebody has a really found of and he has a resources, will definitely commission the calligraphist. But for the journal people, I think it's a dream for them to hire a calligraphist and get done the work what they want in their project. So now it is only available for the elites. And elites, people who are sensitive and inclined towards these values of calligraphy. Because when we look at the new structures, the kind of architecture we are adopting, we are going away from our vernacular styles, and then we are, incorporating a lot of new techniques. So it is not available for the masses, but at first it is available for elites. Yes.
What is the use of calligraphy in a language only few people understand? Can't we do it in different well-known languages?
See, today's topic is about the calligraphy in the Islamic world. And certainly you can find calligraphists uh, in Sanskrit also, and in the Devanagari also. You can find in the English also. You can find in Hebrew also. You can find in other languages also. The only difference between these languages and Arabic and Urdu, because the people who were using Urdu and Persian and Arabic, they comes from the ruling society of the our history. So they were really very good in terms of authority and management. So that's why we see a lot of work done in these three languages rather than other languages. So this is the basically difference between Arabic, Urdu, and Farsi calligraphy and other language calligraphies.
I guess maybe he meant something which is outside. I mean, something like, I mean, Rahul, do you mean something like English, and like, is that what you mean by well-known language? Because then it's a different question, perhaps.
Yes, ma'am. Like well-known languages, like in so many people can't read Arabic and Urdu and all these kinds of languages. So why can't we do it in our languages rather than doing it in that language that nobody can understand? If I want to do calligraphy at my home at any places, then that should be well understanding to other people that what I have written over there. And
Does the craft translate in that sense? I guess that's the question. What is the, does it move? Is it mobile enough
yeah,
to
can't we do in modern like
for other
modern
languages?
like
I think it comes down to the same point that, Rahul, of course we can draw inspiration from anything around us, any material culture that inspires us. You can reinvent, you can modernize, you can upgrade, you can find other applications. We live in a modern world. But I think also what is different is that calligraphy within the Islamic traditions is very linked to their cultural and belief system. So it is a way to reach the soul. It is many craft traditions are find their excellence because they are a method of evolution of the self. So so it's not just about producing an artifact, and that is why it is so intrinsic. It's so linked up with the process that unless we it again comes down to the same question that unless you kind of engage with the spiritual dimension of these older ones, modern craft, modern contemporary craft may not have uh, similar strings attached to it. Whereas, when it is clearly linked to, then one has to engage with the role of the process in producing that excellence. So that is, I think, the distinction you have to bear in mind. And of course, one is free to use anything one sees, touches, breathes,
ma'am,
eats.
I think like calligraphy is used in that days that because they want to like proceed their culture to the future, like they want to show that in
Yeah.
written something. So if we are writing today, we should be write in that language that even future generation can
So
understand.
what happens is this is a very interesting method of research that you just pointed out. That how much of our present influences the way we read our past. The fact that posterity, preservation, archiving, documentation was the primary motor of artists and craftsmen in the past. I am not sure. We are using what we do today to read what the processes of our craftsmen was, and in some ways it is applicable when you come to universal values and techniques. After all, we still are human beings that they were. Nevertheless, having said that, there are cultural and religious and other contexts, geographical contexts that influence a craft's process, and it is not entirely for posterity. Not entirely. You're right. It is for preservation, dissemination, of course. but it is not entirely that. So there is no one story. You need many stories to populate these ideas.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, a few more
Uh,
questions. Maybe the
I think there's some confusion about my education. So I have a image of my certificate, which is basically saying that I have a. Just a second, let me show so that the entire people have a clarity, because there's some confusion. I don't know
I
why
mean,
it is.
this is not the forum to do that. We can do it offline. Don't worry.
Okay,
There were few things that were raised.
okay,
Please do not use this forum to
okay, okay,
authenticate
okay,
your case. This is not the place to do it.
okay, ma'am.
Thank you for understanding.
Okay, ma'am.
all right. Paras is asking, what is the significance of calligraphy to Islamic culture? I don't know, that's a big, broad question. And also, Garima is asking, why does the language then, also develop into things like the face of a lion or, other forms like that? Why does it take on that style? And did scholars also use symbols like the Egyptians? That's from Akshay Verma. If at all they did. When calligraphy was newly founded, did that happen?
Okay.
Not sure. Okay. Yeah.
Of course, the calligraphy has a significance to Islamic values. It is, I would say, universal outstanding value of Islamic culture. When the Prophet started saying no worship to statues, no worship to ideals, so actually they started a new way of expressing their work. So it is definitely one of the deep value of the Islamic culture. Uh, And the second question, why they have a such style like face of line and etc. These pieces are called the tugra. So tugra is basically you can compose anything as a basically statement. You know, you can compose any signature, you can compose any seal, you can compose the any profile of a living animal or thing. So these special things are called tugra. So it is a category within the calligraphy. Yes. Next, please.
Um, Himanshu's writing about calligraphy represents emotions, identity, poised stance of affirmation, aesthetics. It is difficult to connect the above, but one important aspect linked with calligraphy is the calmness one gets when one looks at the script. So, and I guess follow-up questions: what does one see when we see different languages, Gurmukhi, Devanagari, Brahmic? Yeah.
I think we have in all these scripts, we have a calligraphy history. But I have a little strong feeling that the kind of variations we have in Islamic cultures, in Islamic culture calligraphy, we don't have in other languages. So that is the difference between the other expressions of other languages and the Islamic culture language. These are the differences. Yes, next, please.
Um, Is there any conflicts? This is from NR. I don't know who NR is. From the time that calligraphy started to now, I guess, are there any conflicts in how it developed over time? Did it lose religious value? I guess the narrative of the script, what is the journey that it undertook, I guess, is what it's trying to say. Losing religious value or gaining something else, or yeah.
See, when it comes to the spiritual text of Quran and Hadith, these things are strictly followed within the frame of the values of Quran. And when it comes to the gray areas of Islamic cultures, they are interwoven with other cultures or other religions. In those areas, they are changing. Like, so I have shown you a miniature painting of a Mughal Darbar where it has the influence of Vedic culture on Islamic culture. You know, the royal court is there, and things like these uh, these expressions have changed based on the local culture. Yes. Next, please.
Harsh really wants you to do something about calligraphy in the Devanagari script or in other languages. Harsh, do you want to come on and ask your question? He's saying, shouldn't we promote calligraphy in Devanagari so that people get to know about Indian culture also?
So I would not say that this is an Indian culture, Devanagari. Devanagari is basically Vedic culture. So India, when we say about India, India is really large. You know, there are a lot of things as a part of India. So of course, if you want to promote Devanagari as a Vedic culture, this is a different thing, because Islamic calligraphy is related to Islam and Devanagari is related to Vedic culture. If you want to go in terms of Sanatan Dharma or the Vedic culture, then it is a different story. So I would not call it a
Vedic culture.
yes, ma'am.
Let's not tread into those areas. Those are very contested categories.
Yes, ma'am.
Unless you have enough evidence to prove what is Vedic culture, what is the evidence of the calligraphy you're referring to, then we can substantiate what you said.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
because these are very loaded categories, I think let's save Harvinder's wonderful presentation to what it is and what it merits.
Thank
In
you.
fact, Sachin is just saying that research is not meant to promote anything. So, it's an inquiry. And this research is an inquiry. So, Harsh, you're free to take up whatever you'd like to. I think that's, and, refer to Harminder if you need any help in that area. I think that's it. That no more questions, at least on the chat. I hope I haven't left anyone out. There were lots of questions today. But if
Can you see what
to-
the NR was? Sorry for interfering again, but NR is the only person we don't know.
yeah,
So can we have the identity of NR? You want to?
NR, who's asked a question about the
That's right.
development of the conflicts of the development in the development of the script.
Is he or she a new student, or we don't know? Okay.
Okay, she's writing. It's Natasha. Natasha, I guess you're a student. Sorry, maybe from the masters. It's okay. We just wanted to know who's present and who's asking the questions. Yeah, thanks. Anyone else has would like to ask a question in person before we wrap? Okay, a few more. Business world. In the business world, is there any significance of calligraphy?
Yes, certainly people are surviving on the profession as a calligraphy. So certainly it has a importance in terms of business. Calligraphists are doing business. They are doing commission work and they are sustaining in the current situation.
And Shoaib is actually referring us to an Egyptian writer, Taha Hussein, who said others read in order to study. arabesque calligraphy, when the word becomes a flower, a rose, a star. And I think he's quoting from a book, Mosque Miroir de Islam by Par Roger Garodi. I think that is the mirror of the Islamic mosque or something like that. Memories, actually, miroir, I don't know what it would be. All right, I think we can call it a day. A lot of us have classes. If there are no other questions, Vibhuti, would you like to sum up or no? Okay. Thank you so much, and welcome to the SSD Dean, Professor Shashi Menon. We didn't get a chance to welcome him at the beginning, but yeah, and thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. We have another presentation from SSD next week. Tapasya Samal is going to be is the presenter. So see you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for your questions and enthusiastic participation. And thank you so much to the proposition team. Again, Sobhya, Sachin, thanks a lot. All right. Bye.
Thank you.